Okay, I think we'll make a start now. I think a few more people have turned up. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the second webinar of 4 in the Cut Carbon, Cut Cost series. This series is a whistle-stop introduction to some themes associated with environmental sustainability and energy efficiency. This second session will give you an idea of how to reduce your energy consumption and an introduction to renewables and electric vehicles. This presentation will be around 30 minutes long with 10-15 minutes at the end for any thoughts or questions. And you're welcome to put questions in the chat as we go along. Just to let you know that the session is being recorded and the slides and recording will be available after the webinar. Today's presenters are myself, Carl Hirst, and my colleague, Bex Bowcock. We're both sustainability and net zero advisors with the Business Growth Hub. I will be starting by looking at reducing energy use in your business, and Bex will then look at renewables and electric vehicles. I'll start by introducing what we do in the Sustainability and Net Zero team. The Sustainability and Net Zero service helps businesses to minimise inefficiencies within their operations and quantify and reduce their carbon emissions. We offer on-site resource efficiency reviews, one-to-one support to help identify opportunities and quantify cost and carbon savings. We also help businesses to calculate their carbon footprint and develop an action plan to improve. We can help you to build a business case for investment in low carbon technologies and help you to develop an environmental strategy. We can support you to implement projects, find local suppliers of green technologies and access funding. We also run a series of webinars similar to this series called Journey to Net Zero for businesses that would like to improve sustainability but don't know where to start. And there's a link to our services in the slide pack. Your energy bills should be based on actual readings if you have a smart meter. If not, provide your supplier with actual readings so you aren't being overcharged. And this will also make sure you benefit correctly from the energy bill relief scheme. Most small businesses have a standing charge and a pence per kilowatt hour unit cost. And most businesses pay 20% tax, or VAT as we like to call it, unless you qualify for a reduced rate of 5% for charities and very small energy users. Transmission and distribution TUOS or DUOS charges for the use of the transmission and distribution systems and pay to maintain the network. They may appear as a separate line on your bill and may be included, or they may be included in your unit cost. Authorised supply capacity charges are also part of the distribution costs. Then there are green taxes such as a climate change levy and feed-in tariff subsidies that encourage people to invest in renewables such as solar panels. As I said, for accurate bills and to monitor energy consumption, it's important to have accurate meter readings. If you haven't got a smart meter, ask your supplier or landlord for one. You can get lots of useful information from them. Take meter readings monthly and weekly, and maybe on a Friday night and a Monday morning so you can see how much is being used at weekends. Check your meter readings against your bills. Suppliers have been known to get readings wrong. To enable good comparison, normalise the data against your business KPIs, for example, output, turnover, staff numbers. This can help you to compare your energy usage year on year, or this week to last week, so you can target improvements. If you ask your supplier for half-hour data from your smart meter, there are apps where your daily usage pattern can be examined. Most suppliers provide these. These two graphs of a client's energy consumption. The one on the left shows a client's day of maximum demand for the year. This can be compared with his authorised supply capacity to make sure he's not paying for capacity that he didn't need. The graph on the right shows equipment on a timer that comes on every weekday In this case, it was during the Christmas shutdown last year, and it wasn't required. By identifying this, the client realised that it wasn't needed every working day either, so he's changed how it's used now. Now saving £20 a day, or £3,000 for the year. Looking at lighting, quick wins, obviously. Switch lights off when they're not needed. Maximise the use of daylight. Make sure that skylights and windows are kept clean, and turn lights off in areas with good daylight. Label your light switches to make it easier to find the right switch. For example, in racking aisles in a warehouse. Ensure lighting levels are appropriate for the activity in that area. Non-critical areas such as corridors are often overlit. Lighting controls can save up to 50% in a typical office. And there are three main types of lighting controls: timers, occupancy sensors, and daylight sensors. Timers can help prevent lights accidentally being left on out of hours. Occupancy sensors are useful for areas which are used intermittently, such as storage rooms. And daylight sensors can detect sunlight and only turn the lights on when there isn't sufficient daylight. You can also upgrade to LED lighting to save 2/3 of the electricity used for lighting in a business. So a quick example of savings from changing to LEDs. Business's current lighting is 170 watt 6-foot fluorescent tubes. And the current annual energy use based on 9 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks in a year is 100 times 70 watts plus a 15% ballast loss, which are the controls for the fluorescent lights, times the 2,250 hours, gives a energy use of 18,000 kilowatt hours per year. Replace those fluorescents with new LED lights, 130 watt LED lights. So the new energy use will be 100 times 30 watts times 2,250 hours again, gives 6,750 kilowatt hours per year. It's a saving of over 11,000 kilowatt hours, which is equivalent to 2.4 tonnes of carbon dioxide. And at 30 pence per kilowatt hour, that'd be £3,409 saving in the year. And a typical cost to replace the light fittings would be £50 per fitting, which would be about £5,000 in this case, giving a 1.5 year payback. And I've recently seen a number of schemes with much quicker paybacks due to the increase in electricity costs. So aside from lighting, another big energy user in buildings is heating. Heating and hot water account for over 1/3 of UK organisations' energy consumption. Some quick wins are using timers, thermostats, and thermostatic radiator valves. 1 degree reduction can save 8% on your heating bill. Don't obstruct heaters or radiators, and don't heat unoccupied rooms, and avoid portable electric heaters. Also remember to switch off any oil-filled heaters out of use. It's easy to forget because they don't make a noise. Draft proofing and insulating cylinders and pipes have an average payback of a few months. Servicing your boiler every year would save 2% on your heating costs, and if your boiler is over 15 years old, it probably needs replacing. Upgrading your boiler could save 30% of your heating costs, and bear in mind that gas will soon be being phased out. There's a growing trend for the electrification of heating, in particular for heat pumps. Consider upgrading your windows and make sure your roof or ceiling is well insulated. And if you have high bays, use destratification fans to recirculate hot air from the apex. Another good energy saving action is to ensure the workshop heater is switched off if, for example, the roller shutter door is open. This can be done using a simple interlock control. This photo shows a well-insulated hot water cylinder on the left, and the image on the right was taken by a thermal imaging camera, and you can clearly see the heat loss from the uninsulated pipework. Insulation is low cost and payback can usually be expected within a few months of installation. Looking at ventilation and cooling, some simple quick wins. Don't have open windows if the air conditioning is on. Don't cool unoccupied rooms or heat them in the summer. Check temperature settings. You don't need cooling below 24 degrees C. And set a dead band of 5 degrees C to eliminate simultaneous heating and cooling. So set the heating at 19 degrees C and the cooling at 24 degrees C. Make sure you have regular air conditioning inspections to check for leaks, but mainly avoid having the heating and cooling systems on at the same time. Looking at equipment and machinery in businesses, some quick wins are to switch off equipment when not needed, enable power save or power down settings, and disconnect any surplus equipment which is not in use. Install timers and controls on machines. Specify energy efficient models when buying new equipment. A simple example in the office, the water cooler or vending machine, coffee machine. We help DJS Research to install timers on their water coolers. Very low cost to install and saving them £144 per year. Many of these actions are simple and fairly obvious. That may be so, but many businesses don't do any of them, though the current price rises are now making people think about it. Let's have a quick look at compressed air. For manufacturing companies who use compressed air, it can be a large proportion of their electricity costs. When looking at the whole life cost of a compressor, the energy cost actually makes up around 73% of the total costs, whereas the initial investment is only 18%. Some quick wins to save on the compressed air costs include switching compressors off when not in use. An idling compressor uses around 40% of its full load. Fix air leaks. Even a 1mm leak could cost you more than £700 a year in wasted energy. And 3mm leaks getting on for £3,000 a year. Conduct a compressed air leak survey and fix all the leaks. It could save your business a considerable amount of money. Operating your compressor at a lower pressure will use less energy. So it's worth checking that the compressor isn't running at a higher pressure than necessary. Compressed air is often generated at the compressor's maximum pressure, often 7 bar or 100 psi. Reducing pressure by 10% can lead to 5% savings in energy. So make small incremental reductions in the pressure and check that operations aren't affected as you do that. Also check if compressed air is absolutely necessary for the job. An electric tool may do the job just as well and would be much cheaper to run. Then compressors work most efficiently when the inlet air is cool, clean and dry. And compressors are often in warm rooms, which makes the machine work harder. Ducting the inlet air from the outside can result in great energy savings. I'd just like to finish this section by mentioning the true cost of waste. Like an iceberg, there are small visible costs, for example, the cost of skips or effluent and landfill charges. But think about all those hidden costs, in this case below sea level. The energy and raw materials that go into creating that waste, the cost of labour, transportation and storage, as well as the rework costs and the lost profit of not being able to sell the product. So really think about your business and how you do things. There are many savings to be made in energy and other resources. As I said before, if you need any support, please let us know. We can come and see you and help you plan to reduce your energy use. I'll now hand you over to Bex, who's going to talk about renewable energy.
Thank you, Carl. Also, as we're going through, we do suggest or encourage you to ask questions as we're going along, and then at the end we'll be able to answer anything you've got. So, as Carl said, I'm going to start discussing different types of renewable options to your business, and then a bit of an introduction into electric vehicles. So, before we take a look at renewables, I wanted to introduce you to the energy hierarchy, which is similar to the waste hierarchy. So I'm sure you're all aware of, or at least heard the reuse, recycle, disposal sort of method to waste management. So that's what, so while the waste hierarchy ranks most preferred to least preferred options for waste management, the energy hierarchy lists the actions policymakers, industry and consumers need to take when it comes to energy sources and use in order to make in order of most sustainable to least sustainable. So if we take a look at this energy hierarchy, you can see from the top, which is a most sustainable use, is all around behavior change and reducing consumption. So that's about getting people to use the energy more efficiently within your organization. So this could be making sure your staff are turning lights off, turning the temperature down on the boiler, that sort of thing. So it's sort of getting people without any other intervention using energy more efficiently. The next level is the keener part of the energy hierarchy, and this is relying on technology to reduce consumption. So this could include upgrading lighting to LEDs, as Carl said earlier, maybe putting sensors on your lights. So it's sort of that technological intervention. Greener, and what part of this webinar is about today, is about increasing the use of low carbon energy sources. So this could be installing PV, which we'll come on to in a minute, but then a whole other host of renewable sources. The next one down is cleaner, and what this area really does, this highlights the continued use of fossil fuels as part of our energy mix, with an emphasis on using them in a more sustainable and cleaner way. So this could be adding a carbon capture part of the system. And then finally, the least sustainable is meaner. And what this really means is that business as usual approach to using fossil fuels as we do now while we have the resources. So I thought it was really important to highlight the energy hierarchy here, because although we are going to start talking about renewable energy and the different choices for businesses, it's really important that organisations and companies are looking at these first top layers first, so leaner and keener, and these are often the no cost, low cost solutions also. So it's really important to look at this. And as the Business Growth Hub and the Net Zero and Sustainability team, we can help you sort of implement these sort of ideas into your organization. So in terms of renewable energy for business, there are many different renewable energy sources that are available for businesses, but the suitability will depend on the space available for the technology or the storage of the fuel, the geographic positioning of the organization, the building suitability, and also legalities such as planning permission. And that's just to name a few. So first of all, we have wind power, and this uses wind turbines to generate electricity for business. We have solar PV panels, and these use sunlight to generate electricity. We also have solar thermal energy, and what this does is this again uses sunlight as solar PV panels do, but it's to heat the water that's stored in your hot water tank. We have biomass systems. So these generate electricity and heat by burning or fermenting organic material. So this could be straw or wood pellets. We have geothermal and ground source heat pumps. More and more companies we're seeing are sort of fitting in these ground source heat pumps, or air to air heat pumps it sometimes is. We also have a combined heat and power. So this system will capture the heat produced by your electricity to heat your water. And then finally, we would have we could implement hydroelectric power. So this generates electricity from the water flowing through an immersed turbine or a water wheel. So what are the business benefits of installing renewables. So alongside reducing your carbon emissions and your energy bill, businesses with renewable energy generation on site could benefit from stable energy costs, but also sustainable energy because the use of fossil fuels are limited. We would also have another income to sell surplus generated energy back to the grid. So what this means is that, say, for example, if you have a PV system, you use 80% of that on your site, you might have 20% surplus energy that then you could sell back to the grid. So we had a bit of a discussion. We had an alumni event this morning, and a solar PV installer was talking about selling the surplus energy back to the grid, and they said at the minute the best you can really get with solar PV surplus energy is about 6 pence per kilowatt hour. It's not great considering that you might be buying a kilowatt hour for about 40 pence, but it does give you that additional income as another business benefit to installing renewables. So although it is minimal, it's still something to make you aware of. Again, as we mentioned, these carbon savings, this reduction in your emissions can help you to meet your carbon reduction targets. But also it improves your business reputation because customers and stakeholders value your commitment to sustainability. There are a couple of things though to consider when choosing if to implement renewable energy generation on your site. And I'm sure when I was discussing earlier about those different renewable energy options, you were thinking to yourself, well, I can't fit in a dam next to my organisation, or I haven't got land to put wind turbines on. So not all renewables will be appropriate for your site. So as I just said, you might not have acres of building free land to install wind, but also you might not have a roof that is suitable for PV. Now, this might not necessarily mean your orientation to, you know, the way the southwest or southeast facing, but actually the structure of your roof might not be able to withstand solar PV, so that's also something to consider there. But some other things that you should really consider when you're looking at which renewable generation you could look at as an organisation is you should really consider what type of energy your business requires. So would the renewable technology generate the energy that your business demands? Also, it is likely that the energy generated from renewables will not meet your full demand, and that you may need to buy additional energy from alternative sources such as the grid. So, for example, if we use solar PV again, we could see that solar PV might generate 10 to 30% of your electricity demand. But what that means is that you're going to have to find 70 to 90% of your electricity elsewhere. So it will still mean that you might have to buy electricity from the grid. Another thing to consider here is how weather and seasons may impact your energy generation. And also be aware of the upfront costs and the payback periods. But as we know, with the cost of energy increasing, that business case becomes ever more attractive. So next I'm going to just whistle stop tour over electric vehicles. So with increasing consumer demand, greater availability of vehicles and government support, the sales of electric vehicles are growing strongly in parallel to the development of UK charging point infrastructure. So this is I think this data is from October 2022, so very much the latest vehicle stats. Electric car sales have increased by 186% in 2020, and EVs enjoyed another record year in 2021, with more than 1 in 10 new vehicles being electric. The electric car market is growing quickly, with over 590,000 pure electric cars on UK roads at the end of October 2022, and more than 1 million plug-in models if we're including plug-in hybrids as well. So I'm just going to move on to talk about what is the difference between electric vehicles and these plug-in hybrids, because I'm sure you've both are used a lot, but they're not interchangeable. So while electric vehicles are cars that are powered by an electric battery, they're only powered by an electric battery and typically have a range of around 100 to 200 miles, Whereas a plug-in hybrid, they're powered by a combination of electricity and a fossil fuel. So that fossil fuel could be petrol or diesel. These plug-in hybrids have a smaller battery than pure electric, which means that they have a maximum EV range of about 15 to 30 miles. So once you've capped it out at 30 miles and the battery is empty, what happens then is the combustion engine will power the vehicle until the battery is recharged again. So if you go home or you go and plug it back in, you charge it back up to 30 miles, and then you'll be able to use that 30 miles again until that's depleted, as I just said. Then again, your combustion engine just kicks in. So in terms of upcoming legislation, government policy such as the phase out of the sale of new petrol and diesel vans by 2030, and that all new cars and vans should be fully zero emission at the tailpipe by 2035 is likely to promote the uptake of battery electric vehicles. So thinking back a moment ago when we was discussing what the difference between a plug-in hybrid is and an electric vehicle, only battery electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cell cars are considered zero emissions at the tailpipe. So what that means is those hybrid vehicles are not eligible for zero rate road tax, and that no new hybrid vehicles will be manufactured after 2035. So previous to, I think it was the autumn budget statement, which was it 2 weeks ago now, maybe 1 week ago, and there was zero road tax on the zero emission vehicles, so your electric vehicles. They've just announced that come April 2025, they will a road tax will be charged for electric vehicles now. This charge will be £10 in the first year, and then £165 from the second year of registration onwards. And then in terms of what this cost is to electric vans, this will be £290. So what are the different incentives for electric vehicles? So a lot of companies and organisations will have like a salary sacrifice EV scheme. So that's kind of like the cycle to work scheme where you'll pay for your bike pre-tax, and lots of organisations will offer that where you pay for your sort of vehicle before tax to benefit from this salary sacrifice. There's also a couple of grants available for both the domestic and commercial sector, well, organisations. These grants are for plugins, as in the charge points only, not the actual electric vehicles. And what this means is you can get £350 sort of voucher, including VAT, towards an electric charge point. For an organisation, I think it's to a maximum of 40 charge points. And that is under the workplace charging scheme. So that's just on the Gov UK website. We can send a link to that afterwards. We'll make sure we include that in the follow-up. As I said earlier, this vehicle tax, so up until 2025, you won't have to pay any road tax on electric vehicles, but thereafter you will need to. But it will be reducing those higher emitting vehicles. Electric vehicles are exempt from clean air zones and congestion charges. And also, quite importantly, when it comes to electric vehicles, they have less moving parts within the actual vehicle. And what this means is that there's reduced maintenance costs associated with it. So that's basically us for now. So our next session is on Monday, on the 28th of November, again at 2 o'clock. And this session will be again around 30 minutes about engaging your workforce and an introduction into an environmental policy. What we'll run through in terms of the environmental policy is sort of the structure and what you should be included in there. And then afterwards, if you want to have a go at writing an environmental policy, myself and Carl would be happy to take a look just to make sure you're on the right path with that. But I just want to encourage, if there is any questions, pop it in the chat now, and we'll have our best shot at answering them. I'll click back. Carlo. Oh, I'm back now. Well, you can feel free to follow up any follow-up emails with any questions you have. and we can answer them that way if there isn't any at the minute.
No, I think we must have covered everything really well. So
Yeah.
okay, well, thanks everyone for attending.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
we look forward to seeing you all on Monday.
Thank you very much.
A couple of thumbs up.
Good enough for us, isn't it?